Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Hearthcenter, whatever season this is. I am Lotus Knight, one of your hosts for tonight, welcoming you to a new season, and I am joined by quite a cast. First, on my left, back without the beloved stairs background, we have the one and only Super Chicken. Chicken, how are you?
I am good. Yeah, I'm excited to be back for another season. Had a really good time last season. I think my enjoyment of the game was a bit on and off, but Hearthcenter is always fun. Love recapping the week of THL.
For sure. We had quite a season, and we're continuing this with another one of our regular hosts, Neji Boston, who's here after winning I don't even know how many different series last season.
Yeah, excited to be back. Hearth Center is always a good time, and the new THL season has a new class with it. So hopefully that'll shake things up. Maybe it's not the most powerful thing right now, but we'll be talking about that later and discussing it. So let's get into it.
For sure. And we have also returning THL's brand new streamer, Ron Mexico. Ron, how are you?
Doing great, Lotus. Happy to be here as always. Excited for THL's 23rd season. This has been going on for quite some time now, and no signs of slowing down yet. So, should be a good show and a good season to come.
For sure. And last but certainly not least, we have here content boss Donde joining us for a very special cameo. How are you, Donde?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be back. I know I've been here a few times since I handed over the duties to you and Ron. But basically, if you had told me that Ron was going to be here tonight, I said no. So good job not giving me the heads up on that ahead of time.
It was a double blind. I had no idea Donde was going to be here. He tricked us both.
It's sort of an intervention.
Well, we have quite a fun show tonight. We're going to just first begin with a little recap of the season. We'll just say a little bit about what happened. I assigned series to each of you, so I hope you remember kind of what your series was. But to give you time to think, we're going to swap the order here live, and we're going to start by talking about some decks, really, because I feel like a lot of people are like me and just don't know what to bring. This is a new season. We haven't all played decks yet, except for, well, not gonna say it yet, not gonna spoil anything, but now everyone has played Rogue, let's be honest. But let's start taking a look at what are some decks per class. We're going to look at 1 to 2 decks per class that are going to be present in the meta this week. And to kick us off, Neji is going to show us a Death Knight deck.
All right. Well, I was talking about a new class earlier, so let's look at the new class. We have a Blood Death Knight deck. This is a triple Blood Rune deck. Um, Basically, we have a lot of disruption with Theatar and Mutinous, two Vipers, two Watch Posts, and then we have a bunch of Discover effects because Discover effects in Death Knight you can get other runes from like Frost and Unholy. So um, getting some of those cards is really powerful, and the pool is pretty small right now, so sometimes you actually just hit the card that you're looking for, which is really nice. But yeah, this is a super control deck. Just try and outlast your opponent, disrupt their win condition. Um, yeah, it's pretty solid. I'd say it's probably the best Death Knight deck we have available. But Death Knight hasn't been super powerful on release. But if you're looking to play Death Knight, I would say this falls fairly fairly good into the meta.
For sure. For sure. Dante, anything you want to share about Blood Death Knight, be it this, or anything you've seen?
Yeah, I tend to agree with what Neji's saying here, that it is the best version of Death Knight at the moment. There are, a couple other rune decks kind of kicking around that are potent at times or against certain matches, but this one seems to be the one that holds its own the best overall. That being said, compared to some of the meta tyrants right now, it's not really on that power level. But I do like the potential of Death Knight and of this type of deck within Death Knight itself.
I love how a full 25% of this deck is cards that discover cards.
We are even running Volpera Scoundrel in our 2022 Hearthstone deck. we are desperate out here.
Yeah, I think this deck would get like at least 10 wins in Arena for sure.
Solid
Close.
chance.
Yeah, I will say Patchwork is a really broken new card, and when you can brand Patchwork, it is pretty disgusting. You just remove, I mean, if they have things on board, you remove 6 things, so pretty nasty.
Wait, can I just confirm, Neji? Are you saying you get to turn 10?
Oh, yeah, of course. Trust. We discover like 30 Vampiric Bloods. We get there.
That's fair. That's fair. So let's take a look at your second deck, which is not a Blood Death Knight.
That is true. All right. We have another one here. I believe we're doing, yeah, okay, we got the next Death Knight deck. It is Frost Death Knight. I think this is Pheno's list. It might be slightly different, but I'm pretty sure it's the same one. It's a solid deck. It has some decent matchups. With like good matchups into Rogue is not bad because you can freeze out their big stealth minions. It's not very good versus other Death Knights because you're just trying to burn out your opponent, and the Blood Death Knight can gain a bunch of HP. But you got some interesting things. You got a lot of burn damage, card draw, some discover, and freeze effects. So it's a fun deck to play. I actually really enjoy this one, but again, I don't think it's a super powerful deck in the metagame. But maybe with some nerfs, we could see something like this actually be pretty good.
Fair. I'm gonna ask here, Chicken. What do you think of Frost Death Knight? Do you think this is viable? Do you think this isn't viable? Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, it feels like it has a good amount of pretty efficient cards. I think notably like Frostworm's Fury uh, carries the deck a lot of the time in the late game, but it does feel like it kind of lacks a solid finisher that a lot of the other Renathal, like slower Renathal decks tend to have. It does run Astalor Bloodsworn, which is you know kind of what a bit of a spoiler, but a certain other class is making pretty good use out of right now. But it's like to get like a brand like full Astalor, you would need like double Horn of Winter or something like that. So it's not always the most consistent combo, but it still has something. But it doesn't feel like it has um a super consistent, powerful way to close out games a lot of the time.
Fair.
I'll
Anyone
add
with
that I'll add one thing here quickly. There's the new Death Rattle Rogue deck is kind of like an emerging deck. It's seeing more play now, and this is actually not too bad into it because you have the freeze effects, whereas into like Miracle Rogue, they can just draw a weapon you down, stuff like that. But against the Death Rattle one, it's actually kind of solid.
That's fair. If you're looking to counter Death Rattle Rogue, maybe Frost Death Knight is an option. Um, Anyone wants to share any further thoughts on Death Knight as a whole or Frost Death Knight? I'll take that as a no. So, speaking about bad decks, Ron, as one of our Demon Hunter specialists here, tell us about your Demon Hunter.
My Demon Hunter. Definitely, definitely a deck I've stolen from somewhere else, and bad decks might be a bit disingenuous since this is probably the best deck in the game. Quest Demon Hunter right now is pretty insane. Um, it just has so much draw in the deck, so many ways to discount, and the way this deck basically works is because of Unleash Fell being such a broken card. Dimensions also happens to be completely insane in this deck, but the name of the game is just cheat. Completely cheat everything, cheat all the mana, wind up playing a bunch of stuff that is way cheaper than it has any reason to be, and you drop basically multiple spell damage minions on a board, and basically any board you can unleash Fell once or twice and clear it up, and then go off with your Fell barrages or something that will just win the game. Even if you don't get there, you might be able to get there instead with gigantic Phantasm minions or a Jace to repeat all the stuff that you did. So it's a highly flexible deck. It's very consistent. It draws really well. It cheats and wins because of it.
Yeah, I just want to know two things about this deck that makes it fascinating to me. One, you typically don't finish the quest. It's not that important. You just want the middle steps, which is kind of crazy. And
I
dimensions.
mean, you might finish the quest, you just don't play the quest. You might even burn the quest because you don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I've used the quest once, but it's very non necessary in most matchups, I would say. But the coolest thing to me is just Jace with spell power.
Yeah, that's pretty nasty.
Yeah, sometimes you get +4 spell power on Jace, and then it's just like, yeah, just cast a bunch of spells and win, because there's no one who can deal with that much damage. Um, Neji, I know you've been playing this deck a lot. Can you tell me a bit about it?
Yeah, this deck is omega broken. Definitely, I'd say the best deck in the game. You can do just absurd things. Like you were saying, you can get your spell damage cheap enough that you can combo it with Jace. And every single time I do that, they die. There is no shot they ever live. You literally never count because there's actually infinite damage. Your fell brushes just do like I don't even know. Like get two fell brushes off with like let's say you have +4 spell damage. What is that? Like 32 damage or something? I don't even know. And that's just the fell brushes alone. So yeah, it is extremely flexible. You were mentioning the quest reward. Yeah, a lot of the time you intentionally burn the quest reward because it's a clunky minion in your hand that you just don't want to play. But there are matchups where it is useful. I've noticed against like the new Plague Spreader Priest, it's pretty useful if you can get that off. Usually you get it in their hand and they don't have time to transform it. I mean, sometimes they can, but if you can get that off, then you can make a huge burst turn and just kill them for 40 HP after. So, yeah, I mean, there's just infinite things you can do with this deck. It doesn't have bad matchups, really. You can beat everything. So, I expect this deck to get changed. The balance patch that's coming up.
Well, we'll talk balance patch later, but with this in mind, I want to ask Donde and Chicken, anything you two want to share about West DH?
I've been
Not.
playing.
Oops, sorry. I'll
Oh,
let Chicken go first. No, you go first.
all right. Yeah, I've been playing this deck. I started like playing it a couple days ago, and it's definitely the most fun deck I've played so far this expansion. It really does feel like some of the combo decks of last year, which I really enjoyed a lot. And it feels like I don't know. It feels like a deck that we've been sort of missing a bit for the past couple expansions. Um, like some of the like the Jace turns are just so crazy. Like you can set up like set up like a couple spell damage minions with like some damage spells, and then play the Jace on the same turn if you've completed quests, and just do like absurd amounts of damage. It's really fun, and yeah, it just feels like a deck that really stands out in the meta right now is in terms of both unique play and power level.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with anything that has been said so far about the deck, and the only thing I guess I could add of any content to what we've already discussed is, of course, there's comparisons and callback to Il'gynoth and that style of play, since Il'gynoth was the key component to a combo quest, or not even quest, just a combo Demon Hunter deck, and this doesn't feel as bad to play against, because you don't get actively punished specifically for playing minions. Of course, the Demon Hunter wants to clear your minions. That's what the deck wants to do, and it will do that with Unleash Fel, among other things. But at least it doesn't feel like, wow, if I just play minions, then I hurt myself, but that's what I want to do as the opponent. And so at least it feels like it's not quite as frustrating to play against.
Fair. Fair. And with that said, I'm going to keep us moving so we end the show relatively on time to Druid. Donde, why don't you tell us about our Druid deck of the night?
Sure. I don't know really that I have to tell anybody about this deck because it's Armor Druid. And if you've played Ladder for even 15 minutes, you've probably come across at least one of these. It's this. I mean, there's a couple different lists rolling around. This seems to be kind of the most popular one at the moment, using the Under Kings. And it's obviously the two Insatiable Devourers in there. The Lorthamar Theron is in the deck as well, to give you kind of a little mid-game boost there, playing minions that are just big and a pain to remove as the opponent, and obviously to give you targets for Earthen Scales to allow you to pop off with a Nubricon when you decide to win the game. Denathrius is in this deck. I've seen even lists that are cutting Denathrius, but the real star, as is going to be the case with a lot of decks, is Astalor and Bran, enabling crazy Astalor combos. With a Nubricon, you can, of course, just win the game right from hand most of the time, without even really needing to do a whole lot of setup. As long as you have some armor, you can easily get more throughout the course of the turn and just win the game from there. So this is, I gravitated to playing this deck like day one. It's not a very different play style from the Ramp Druids of previous expansion, so it's very familiar right away. It's obviously centered around Mana Cheat, as a lot of good decks are nowadays. So it's a very familiar, very, very strong deck, and it can be very frustrating to just lose out of nowhere, or seemingly out of nowhere. And yeah, that's kind of, I think it's probably a candidate to have some cards touched up. Bran would probably be the card that most people are clamoring to have nuked from orbit, but at least removed from standard.
Fair. Chicken, what do you think of this deck?
Yeah, this is probably my most played deck this expansion. I started off just playing Alignment Druid, and then I think when Saturday Nathanius got nerfed, I switched to just playing Ramp Druid, based on how the meta was developing. So I've been playing a list very similar to this. It feels like definitely feels like a very strong deck. I don't think it's really a power outlier like it was at the start of last expansion. I think Demon Hunter, Priest, and Rogue are all performing a bit better than Druid at the moment. So I think it lines up pretty well. It's a deck that kind of, I mean, just naturally punishes very, very slow decks. So any it kind of like sets a time limit for you to win the game a lot of the time. So I think that is where some of the frustration comes from, where like you must be this fast to to play the game against Druid, or otherwise you're just gonna lose. But I think overall the deck um, isn't really like pushing too many decks out of the meta. I think if anything, like Demon Hunter is pushing out a lot of very similar decks for similar reasons, except Demon Hunter is just much better into aggro as well. So I think it's doing quite fine right now, but nothing too crazy.
Anyone wants to add anything else about Druid? Take that as a no as we move on to our next class. Ron, let's go to your favorite class. I think if it's not Demon Hunter yet, tell us about Hunter.
I still love Hunter. This is a list that I am a really big fan of because it's still running Shock Spitter. Even though Shock Spitter got nerfed, it is still like good enough to win quite a few games. Um, this is a list that went with the 40 card strategy because now that Shock Spitter has been hit with a nerf and cost 3 instead of 2, we kind of need the additional survivability rather than just going all in on that one card. So this list kind of has the ability to do that. We run Selective Breeder still, which can find a Hydralodon as well as the Shock Spitter. But that is still the centerpiece of the deck. We have Bran, we have those cards. We have Warsong Wranglers and Zola as ways just to get more Shock Spitters alongside the 2 Devouring Swarms and a bunch of weapons. And then there's just pieces that kind of put the rest of it together and help you reach the point where you can win. Um, Outside of weapons, there's card draw cards, a lot of card draw cards. Search the bottom of the deck. There's one specific card in there that is bad that I put in because it's fun, and that's Scourge Tamer. If you're trying to win a game with this deck, you should probably cut that and put in, I don't know, Astalor or something else that's like decent. Um, but like overall, it's a pretty cool deck, and I've also gotten like it's a 40 card deck, but I've gotten plenty of turn 7 lethals still with this. Like it goes surprisingly fast when you run a bunch of weapons and you run ways to copy Shock Spitters and or sometimes make them cost less. You have Bran, you have even like one or two of them. Uh, Things can get crazy in a hurry. So solid deck that I enjoy. I took this to Legend on Asia ladder, and I would still recommend it for anyone who likes Shock Spitter.
Fair. Let me ask Donda here. Anything you want to say about Aggro Hunter?
Surprisingly, I have not actually faced this deck before or after the nerf, and I have no idea how that's possible because everyone talks about Hunter, and everyone was talking about the Shock Spitter before the nerf, and I literally never even saw the card. So I can't say if I count myself lucky or unlucky for not having experienced the deck. But I honestly haven't played any of it myself yet, though. I've watched Ron play it, and he's a Hunter master, so I assume that I will just absorb all that knowledge and be able to play the deck at a top 100 level because why wouldn't I?
You maybe want to go with a different class.
Well, we don't all love Hunter as much as you, Ron.
If you're not obsessed with Hunter, you might want to look elsewhere.
Don't tell my opponents the strategies.
I mean, Donde loves Hunter. He's gonna bring this.
There you go. Much better.
Fair. Anyone else wants to talk about this deck before we move on to the best class in Hearthstone?
Yeah, I played Shock Spitter Hunter, like the 30 card version, a lot. Um, I I was having a lot of fun with that, but yeah, deck is also pretty broken, so I'm a little bit sad. Um, like as soon as a combo deck pops up, it gets nuked to the ground again. But I do think it was um pretty broken, and it was like almost not even a combo deck because of like just because of like how few pieces you really even needed to make the combo work. It almost just like felt like a 1 to 2 card win con on like turn 7 or turn 8. So I do
Yeah,
wish
pre-nerf, I was getting turn 5 lethals. It was kind of nasty.
yeah, I do wish there was a way for the deck to have been like, I mean, maybe there will be some more refinement, which I hope will happen, and then maybe the deck will come back once the meta settles a little bit. But yeah, it was a little bit sad that like the deck went from like way too broken to just unplayable, and I hope there's some sort of middle ground that can be found.
Yeah. Um, let's look at the next class. But I want to thank everyone for the analysis of Hunter. Donde, tell us about this very broken deck.
It's broken in a way that you don't want it to be broken, as in it just doesn't work. I mean, I didn't want to highlight Big Spell Mage or Ping Mage. I mean, neither of them are getting a whole lot of run right now in the current meta. Big Spell, I guess, is probably the best mage deck. But this is Arcane Mage. It's the only one that's kind of got a little bit of a new flavor. This expansion, it's featuring Vexalis. It's featuring, like, anybody plays it. You can't feature a card that no one's playing, but it's in the deck. It's a legendary. It's cool. I opened a golden of it, unfortunately. And the Arc Splitter, and the whole premise of the deck is to make a bunch of Arcane Bolts, and then buff those Arcane Bolts with the Mana Thirst, which is just way overcosted for what it's worth. I think it's 7 right now. Is that right? Mana Thirst 7. Anyway, you do that, and you just try to take out your opponent all in one. There's a small problem right now. Armor exists, Armor Druid, so you can't just get a bunch of bolts likely to beat them or any 40 card deck or any Death Knight that gets more health as the game goes. The deck's just not going to work, unfortunately. But I was told to tell you guys it worked for me in a Tavern Brawl. That was cool. Solid Alibi is a fun card if you like angering your opponents for 2 turns before they kill you. That's, about the maximum enjoyment you're probably going to get out of this deck in this class right now, unless you really want to just go back to running Big Spell Mage, which didn't change at all really from the last expansion till now.
Fair. I want to ask the one and only Neji Boston. Neji, is this a deck you expect to see, and what do you think of Mage?
I had high hopes for Arcane Mage. I thought it might actually be a good deck, but unfortunately, it is not. um, there's Donde talked about a lot of the problems with the deck. Another thing is there's just like not enough damage when you have to use some of it on like opposing minions, just to stay alive. That's a problem. Like the deck only has, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 arcane bolts naturally. So if you have to like discover more to find lethal, it's just not very consistent. It's hard to stay alive. You don't have enough damage. It just doesn't beat anything. So yeah, I was excited to play it. Unfortunately, it's not too great. Maybe it'll get some buffs, or I mean, I don't think nerfs are enough to make this playable. I think the deck itself needs some help or some new cards.
Yeah. Any further thoughts anyone wants to share about Arcane Mage before we move on to Paladin? All right. So Paladin, I actually think is quite a complicated class to talk about. Donde, how do you feel about Paladin?
All right, contrast to Mage, I do like Paladin right now. It's not necessarily the cream of the crop like the Demon Hunter we talked about, or even at the level of like Armor Druid most likely. But this is a pure Paladin. There's a couple different takes on it right now. This one we're looking at is a bit more like low to the ground, Silver Hand focused Paladin, but there are some more slightly heavier ones. I don't see many running Cariel, like the hero Cariel, not the 4-cost Cariel Roam. That's just a very, very good card, which you should be running. But overall, the theme is, to put early pressure on your opponent, using your minions, using some of your buff, and then getting to the Countess, getting those light rays down for free, and then you just kind of finish off your opponent all in one fell swing with really big stuff. So if they can't remove your board or kill you at that point, you do tend to finish out the game, usually in those, that 7, 8, 9 range. But against some decks like the Quest Demon Hunter, for example, that might just be too late. You might just not be able to put enough pressure on them. They might still have a high enough health total that they're not scared. So it's definitely got its matchups right now, and I think it's a good deck. It definitely is bringable, I think, this season in THL at the outset. Obviously, we might see some nerfs in the next few weeks, and things might change and make this even better because other things get nerfed instead of this. So we'll have to see. But I like the overall idea of the deck, and the Countess is just a fun card.
Now, I want to ask Ron, do you have anything to add about Pure Paladin or Paladin?
Yeah, Paladin's in kind of an interesting place right now. There's enough like strong cards that I think it has game against a lot of different things. I think when I looked at it, like HS Replay had it as maybe the fourth best class. Um, I mean, that's always a little skewed because they take like all of the data from everybody. But as far as like competitive wise, it's probably not the fourth best, but it's still like decent enough. And this is a really cool take on Paladin, this kind of list. I've seen one very similar to this that runs like instead of Blood Crusader and some of the other cards like Light Blade, it runs more dude summon cards just to kind of go in on that with the bridge as well. And you just get like lots of big buffs with things. I also ran into a paladin recently that was full quest demon hunter hate. So that's a viable option too. It's kind of an interesting like way to go. And there's a lot of tech cards, watch posts and stuff. Okani, granted that's all neutrals, but Paladin has some good tools to exploit it with giving them divine shield, and kind of getting around demon hunters like heal effects. So there's some different directions. Paladin's kinda decent right now.
Fair. Um, Anyone else wants to talk about Pure Paladin before we hop on to Priest? All right. So, Priest is a class that actually has been in a lot of tier lists as just still being number one, and it was before. So, Chicken, what happened to Priest?
Um, I think it's more what didn't happen to the meta. Uh, I think like Priest is very much the same, as you can see from this deck list. The main thing they've gained is a bit of consistency in the form of Animate Dead. So now you can kind of, if you want to play a Radiant Element early and get a couple spells off and maybe draw a few cards to optimize your hand for a bigger Radiant pop off, you can kind of do that now with the Animate Dead, uh, to kind of res your Radiant Elemental for a mana cheaper, and then you may have set up your hand a little bit better for a Radiant pop off. So I think the consistency is a little bit better. And then also the other decks that are being played are really favoring Blessed Priest right now because you have Druid, which doesn't have great removal. You have Rogue, which doesn't really have any removal, and Demon Hunter doesn't really have any removal either. And those are the other kind of three most popular classes. So I think Boon Priest is arguably the strongest deck in the meta, partially because it's just objectively a very strong deck, just dumps huge amounts of stats on the board, and also because the other popular decks right now don't have great tools to deal with it.
Fair, fair. Um, let's say Ron here, you're a Priest player. What do you think of this deck?
I hate this deck. I've hated it for months, but like it's really good. If you want to win games, this is certainly a very valid way to go about winning a lot of games. Also, Chicken was mentioning consistency, and I just have to add that Animate Dead literally will always res the Radiant Elemental. It doesn't matter if you have Handmaiden or Valish die, it's just going to bring back the Radiant, at least if you're my opponent.
You got to see my
It's
games.
like, oh my god, it shouldn't be a guarantee, and yet somehow it seems like it always is, and it is mega tilting. But yeah, this deck, like, it's if you've been playing any Hearthstone in the last 3 months, you probably have seen this deck. It's not much different. It got like one new card, and they decided to also play Sunwell, which some of them were doing before, somewhat recently. So that gives them outs, like ridiculous outs that they might not have. Deck still runs identity theft, so you can just steal win cons from your opponent too. It is obnoxious. So I hope it gets nerfed.
And Anyone else wants to talk about priests before we move on to rogue? All right, I'll take that as a no. So let's take a look at rogue. I believe you're the one to tell us about rogue as well, Chicken.
I am. Yeah, I was debating between the two kind of main rogue archetypes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Miracle Rogue because I thought the concoctions were pretty cool. But I think Death Rattle Rogue is a more interesting deck to talk about just because there's more new cards in this deck. Um, this deck did exist last expansion. There are certainly a lot of cards that you may recognize from the previous iteration, but the archetype has kind of opted to go away from the burn plan of running Naval Mine and has switched to kind of a more full board focused plan with Invincible, Infectious Ghouls, and the Scourge Illusionist. I've also seen some lists that run the 6 mana 4/4 rusher that summons the 2/2 of a random minion in your deck. But this is just the list I picked. I believe it's the most popular list from the past few days. But yeah, I was I think a lot of people had the notion that Death Rattle Rogue could be really strong if they just printed a couple more powerful Death Rattles, and they really did. These Death Rattle cards are really good. And yeah, it's just these cards are just pretty crazy. Like proccing Invincible Death Rattle a few times in a turn just kind of makes the stats get out of control. Infectious Ghouls going on to multiple minions just means that like you literally can never clear the board unless you have like a silence effect or like multiple full board clears in a turn. It just like it's very difficult to deal with for certain decks. Notably, I think like Demon Hunter and the Blood Death Knight have a bit of trouble dealing with this deck. So if you're running into those a lot, definitely try picking this up.
Ooh, I think rogue to me is. I don't know which one is more dominant right now, if it's Demon Hunter or Rogue, but I think there's actually an argument. Donde, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This deck feels really bad to play against. It's very frustrating. Um, I mean, I've played only against it so far, and it just feels like one of those decks that like something has to give on this to allow the meta to not turn into everyone has to run silence or you just lose against Death Rattle Rogue.
This is definitely the deck that made Donde start playing Starfish, though.
Oh yeah, Starfish goes in decks, and it's Ron may or may not agree. I still don't know if he agrees. To be quite honest with you, he's kept it very nebulous. But it is a card, and it is a card that can save you. But it doesn't feel good when there's a deck out there where your only option is, do I draw the one of, or if I was so committed to it, two of one of these two cards to not just die. And that's not fun. Also, why are there? I was gonna say it looked like there were diamond infectious ghouls in there, and then I realized they were just signature infectious ghouls for a second. So I was just to say you wail, but like no.
Anyone else wants to share any further thoughts on Rogue? I know this is a very spicy class, so anything else anyone wants to say?
Well, Miracle Rogue hasn't really changed all that much either. Like it's gotten a bit stronger, but it's pretty much the same kind of thing. So it's about the same. It's really strong, just like this one is. So rogues are going to be everywhere. Really strong class.
I will say I do not like this deck at all. It's literally just draw your graveyard and then hope that you hit Sketchy or Trickster Smokescreen, and you just play a bunch of big idiots, and there's like nothing to the deck, and it's really annoying because they just high roll you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I agree with Donde. It's just like It's the most frustrating thing to play against. I think this is my least favorite deck to play against in the meta, even
Where
with
does it
all the mana cheating and stuff.
Where does it rank on a scale of 1 to Big Priest as far as playing against it for you?
Oh god, honestly, it's kind of similar. I can't
Yeah.
stand it.
It definitely has that vibe.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's super annoying.
To be fair, the gameplay of the other rogue is often also draw your graveyard and do a bunch of stupid things and then make a giant thing. So
Yeah.
Rogue is doing a lot of ridiculous stuff right now.
Different graveyard though.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Both the graveyards are broken.
Yep. At least the Warlock one is fine. No one even remembers what it is.
I literally have no clue what you're talking about.
There's a Warlock graveyard as well. It's a 3-man
Death Knight has a
card.
graveyard too, right?
Sorry?
Death Knight has one too. Isn't it Scourge Graveyard? Is that the card name?
I don't know. I was
Don't make
thinking
me
of
go into the collection. I don't know,
Okay.
guys.
It's the 4-mana pump up all your minions +1 attack or +3 if you spend a bunch of corpses.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
Seems
Yeah.
fine.
the one I was thinking was the one for Warlock that desecrated graveyard that sacrifices a minion at the end of your turn to summon a 4/4, which is not good. But with that said, let's take a look at Shaman. Neji, Shaman is in a very interesting spot because I feel like it got not much. What happened to Shaman?
Yeah, we got this aggro shaman. It's got some murlocs in it. It's got some death rattle stuff, which is the new cards from the expansion, like Scourge Troll and Deathweaver Aura, Shadow Suffusion, Rotgill. A big part of this deck is the Hawkstrider Rancher. If you can stick that on board, you can make some really, really annoying minions to clear. Immediate buffs, plus they summon 1/1, so really obnoxious to play against. But yeah, this is just like a snowbally aggro deck that you try and stick minions, sticky minions on the board, buff them with Bloodlust, buff them with Rotgill. Not much else to it. I've definitely played this deck. Didn't just copy this from McBanderface. But yeah, if you want to play aggro, I think this is a solid option.
Okay. Let's see, Chicken. Do you want to share anything about Aggro Shaman? You can also just answer no if you don't want to talk about this deck.
As I said, Rotgill is an underrated card. As I said in the said review, of course it's underrated. You have to play this card. I think Hawkstrider Rancher is also a card that could start to be a staple in a lot of aggro decks, going forward over the next year or so. I think the card is like kind of like I guess quietly very, very strong. And I think it was certainly overlooked quite a bit in set reviews and stuff, but I think the card actually has quite a bit of merit in aggro decks, just being really annoying if you're able to drop quite a few minions. And yeah, you can set this up with like Clownfish and then go Hawkstrider Rancher, play a bunch of cheap like zero cost Murloc. So I think this deck does have some legs. I think if we end up moving towards a little bit more aggro focused play, I think Shaman is quite good just because it's able to flood the board a bit faster than a lot of aggro decks, and then it also has the Flurgle AoE to deal with wide boards.
Yeah. Any further thoughts anyone wants to share about Shaman?
The Jombre Evolve Shaman is also pretty sweet. This one, I'm not sure if this one's the strongest or the Evolve one is. Both of them are just a little bit behind on like the stronger stuff in the meta, but both of these decks are pretty cool.
Yeah. Now, let's take a look at the two final classes, which are classes everyone is seeing a lot, I'm sure. So, Chicken, tell us about Warlock.
Yeah, Warlock is an interesting one. This is Mine Warlock, which is obviously a very well-known deck, but the interesting thing is Devourer of Souls. Um, it's like on paper, this deck seems pretty similar, but I think now you're able to actually get the combo off a lot earlier, and I think the bar for getting a full combo off is a lot lower. Because if you're not familiar with Devourer of Souls, it's whenever a friendly minion dies, it gains its death rattle. So if you play Phylactery on your board and you're able to kill off some of the other minions on board first, you'll actually give those death rattles to the Devourer of Souls, and then when it dies, it'll basically trigger like the full board of death rattles again. So if you have an explosive cheap and you play Shallow Grave on it, it'll kill off your other minions first, like say the Imps you play, trigger the Mind's death rattle, and then it'll go on to the Devourer of Souls, and then the explosive sheep will die, and then the Devourer of Souls will die. So it's basically like having another Tamsin, or kind of like running Queen Ashara last expansion. So basically, you just get a much cheaper version of Queen Ashara now, which is quite nice.
Fair. See here, Ron. Anything you want to share about Mind War?
Yeah, I mean, it got a slight upgrade, it seems, with Devour Souls, just to be a bit faster and a little bit more like damage potential than it had before, which was already kind of insane. The main thing is it's just not fast enough to keep up with the meta right now. But if we see some nerfs, this might rise up to the surface again. So certainly a deck to look out for. It was already playable last expansion, and if other things drop down a bit, this could take their place.
Oh, yeah, I just kind of want to add that I think like it would almost be impossible for the meta to line up worse for Mindlock right now. Like Miracle Rogue is such a hard counter to the deck. Boon Priest is such a hard counter to the deck. I'd imagine Quest Demon Hunter is just like faster than this deck. So you just kill them. You just kill them. Like I think the only way it would be worse is if like Glide was still in the meta and you could run that too. Like Demon Hunters are even running like Rust Rot Viper right now for the tradable, but it just like coincidentally hits this deck super hard because of Rune Mithril Rod. So I I do think this deck will like actually be good. With after like a round or two of nerfs. But yeah, right now it's just uh in a very unfortunate spot.
All right. Any final thoughts about Warlock before we move into our final class of the night?
I mean, speaking of in a really bad spot, let's do it.
Go for it, Ron.
Okay, so the final deck, I highlighted a Control Warrior. There's also some Enrage Warrior stuff going on, but Warrior it's in really bad shape. It's struggling hard, and this is an option that exists that you could elect to play if you were so inclined. If you expected to win games with this deck, you may want to alter those expectations to be a little bit more realistic. But this deck has some tools. It's got a late game win condition, kind of, sorta, in Astalor. Um, you can disrupt a lot of stuff. That's kind of the name of the game with this deck. There's Call to the Stand to pull out your opponent's most important like combo type minions. There's a disruptive spell breaker that can discard important spells from your opponents. You can steal stuff with Theotara. You can play Mutanus. You still have the Rakara and Shield Shatter plays to like clear boards. It even runs a Phelan and From the Depths for like cheaper colossal stuff. But I mean, realistically, this deck is not going to be winning very many games. It's a pile of cards that's trying really hard to do something that it is too poorly equipped for in the current meta. This would need some significant nerfs, I think, to be realistically playable and might even need a whole other expansion for Warrior to even have a shot at being a competitor, the way things have gone.
Yeah.
I just want to commend you for getting through that without laughing.
Just trying
lot of
to be
restraint.
professional here. Things are bleak for Warrior.
Yeah, I was thinking like, man, this looks a lot like a warrior deck I played in, April.
Yes.
What's going on there?
Because it kind of is. Warrior just doesn't have any other good tools that it's gotten. There's Enrage stuff, but also one of the best enabler of Enrage cards just left again. And Animated Berserker. So it's been bad for Warrior.
Now, I want to bring us back to our main screen. Before we go over what happened last season, I want to do a commercial break. So, content boss Donde, why don't you tell us what is Twitch Lime, what is subbing? Tell us a bit about that.
Sure, I can do that. Yo. Hey there, Twitch viewers. Have you subscribed to Team Hearth League yet? That's this channel you're watching right now. Make today to be a league yourself and subscribe to our channel. This subscription enables the THL team to cover the various costs of operating our website as well as improve the quality of our streams and content to our viewers. That's you. Subscribe. If you have Amazon Prime / Twitch Prime, you can subscribe to the channel for free. Subscribers will get a THL emoticon as well as the THL chat badge. So hit that thumbs up button and keep the notifications on to make sure you catch our team broadcasting live. We appreciate each and every one of you, except Ron. Special note to our viewers, check out THL's other social media points of interest. Those are our website, teamhearthleague.com. You probably know about it because you play in the league and you have to go there and put your stats in and stuff if you win the games, which Ron doesn't. Catch us on Twitter at THL_HS. Go there for Mako memes. I don't make them, he makes them. They're not funny. Join us on Discord. That's Team Hearth League. That's not a Discord. What are you doing? There's nothing in this that says what our Discord is. Just go to the website. It's there. Click on the button. The True Hearth Legends himself, Saku, continues to post all of our videos on our YouTube channel. He is a god. I can't slight Saku. Just search for Team Hearth League to see everything previously recorded, and make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well. You are watching us on our Twitch channel, which we mentioned before. It's twitch.tv/Team Hearth League. If you can't read, it's up in your search bar at the top, or possibly on our YouTube channel in the future if you are a time traveler. And for all your THL fans out there are sometimes THL shows every single most days of the weekend. You can't go wrong tuning in at any time for some Hearthstone related content. Now, back to the good part. Ka-chow!
Nice job on the first read through for you, Donde.
Yeah, good try.
There's a lot of Ron hate in there that I don't remember seeing in the in the actual official notes.
No, that was me. I wrote the script for this.
Oh,
week.
okay.
There was no instruction there to not ad lib. So
solid.
I will remind everyone this is the most readable the commercial is going to be this whole season.
Oh, true.
Yeah, corruption starts show 2. We just keep 2 small corruption points from past seasons as mementos, you can say.
It actually sounded weird to me because
It did.
it actually sounded odd because there were no corruptions in it. I was like very confused. I was like, wait, why does it sound weird?
It was surprisingly coherent. I agree.
I think
My
we need to bring
brain has
Donde
melted
back
into a
for the
puddle.
final episode.
We probably should, and have
just do
him
like a
read
side by side comparison of where it
the
started,
fully cursed
where it
version.
ended.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, Donde is always welcome if he wants to come for the final show. It will be amazing. But I can guarantee you, and I'm sure everyone here is looking forward to seeing what is going to happen next week to the commercial, because it's not going to be like this anymore. So, with that said, let's take a look at what happened some past seasons. So we're just going to do a quick review. Someone's going to tell us a few points of interest, and we're going to kick it off with Legacy. Ron, what happened in Legacy?
All right, so Legacy was quite the season again. It was the 22nd season of Legacy. We had the finalists were the Diamond 5 and Legacy Series Season 22 Conquest participants, I think.
Don't forget it's the closed list
Closed
conquest,
list.
of
My
course.
bad. Sorry. How could I get that wrong? And the Diamond 5 wound up winning the title. It was a bit closer than even the final score looked, because if the what I think it was decided on the second to last game, but the last game looked very dicey for the winners, Diamond 5. So came down to a close one. Just a really strong season from, I think, all teams. And there were a lot of people that were predicting these exact two teams to make it to the championship. So it kind of lived up to expectation. Um, what more can you expect, though, but for Diamond 22 to win with the Diamond 5 in season 22? It was like it was preordained.
Almost like the outcome had been decided before the onset of the season. Who could have?
Rigged.
It did feel like a very, very strong season. Like there were some crazy teams in Legacy this season, and like some crazy teams that didn't make playoffs. Um,
Yeah.
it felt like very, very stiff competition, and like certainly didn't feel like there were any free weeks either. Like couldn't really sit back and sit on your laurels even if you were at the top of the standing. So yeah, it was a very, very competitive season. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, shout out to my Zilves crew. 16 points a week, sitting on the bench in the playoffs. That's how that goes, you know. But an honest shout out to 3 players who did go undefeated individually throughout the course of the season. They were all in the Silver Conference, and that just speaks to what you're saying there about how some of the conferences were absolutely ridiculous. In case you were wondering, those players were Memnarch, Just Concede, and G-Kick, who only played 5 games, but still 5-0. The other 2 went 7-0. So awesome performance by all 3 of those players.
So, with us getting through Legacy, I just want to ask one question, and I'm only going to ask this question to Ron in the interest of time, and it is, Ron, tell me a team you're not playing in that you think people should watch out this season in Legacy.
A team that I'm not playing in that people should keep an eye out for. Well, I'm gonna go with the team that brought back most of the players that won the title from last season, and that is going to be a team that has Neji Boston and Kotamora, and I don't even remember what your team name is, Neji.
Clown Stoners.
Clown Stoners, that's it. So watch out for Clown Stoners. Neji, Molestar, G-Kick is subbing in this first week. Kotamora and Canoe. Is it Diamond that's actually playing on the team in the 3?
Ricescription.
Ricescription, okay. So, yeah, another player returning. Neji, Rice, and Kotamora won the title on Diamond 5 last season. They're coming back. G-Kick subbing for Rice this week, which sounds even more busted. Molestar and Canoe also on the team. So, yeah, that's a scary looking team. That's who I've got my eye on for this season.
Yeah. Let's move to Hero. Donde, why don't you tell us what happened in Hero last season?
So this was the story of 2 conferences, teal and purple, of course. But one of those conferences was a bit top heavy, and one of those conferences was a dogfight the entire season. That was the teal conference. Every team, at least the top 5 teams, were in serious contention all the way through the regular season to just make the playoffs. And then, of course, they all lost to the top 2 teams in the purple conference, which were Clowntown and Another Pit of Misery. APM did go on to win the championship in a 12-3 final resounding W over, unfortunately, another Neji team. I say unfortunately, not that it's unfortunate that you guys got there, just the unfortunate result, of course, for you guys there. But great competitive season from Hero. As you can see the bracket here, this is, every team that makes the playoffs in Hero really has no weakness whatsoever. And I think that that's kind of what you have to look forward to every season at this point. If you're making a hero contender, you need to make sure there are no weaknesses on your team. You can't have a 5 seed that gets like a red card in the 3rd minute of the game and is gone for the whole season. Because if they do that and they go like, I don't know, 1-6 and win only like 3 games or something like that the whole season, that's a huge hole to try and plug. And it's just not something that you're going to be able to overcome.
Fair. That's fair. Now, in the spirit of keeping the show short and sweet, I want to ask you, Donde, what is a hero team that you're not in that you would say, watch out for this team this season?
I mean, I went over a couple of the teams during the reveal stream. That it's actually interesting because it was a pretty good division between the teams that I thought were the top 5 in each conference. But I think it was Purple is a Purple one that's the quote unquote free conference this season. I'm
all conferences are free.
Oh, all conferences are free. Yes. Okay. Sure. That's what we say. But yeah, I mean, Ice Clown Citadel is probably the one with of course Neji. I know we just keep talking about Neji teams, but Neji, you put together quite the team with our hat in the 2 and Marty being the 3. I know Rada is subbing for you in the 4. Very, very good player. Azalea Akari in the 5. Probably not a 5 seed. Someone who should be playing in the 5 seed, to be honest with you. But the PR dictates it. So, yeah, that's a team that I would say to look out for. Also, great name. Great team name.
That was Azalea's idea. We really, really liked that one. We had a bunch of different ones, but that was the best one we thought.
Well, good luck. Good luck.
And speaking of hot teams, let's move on to Pro, where Neji is going to tell us what happened last season.
All right. In Pro, we had a very competitive playoffs, a lot of good teams, but it came down to the Coney Island Clown Club versus Brushy Tuna, and it was an exciting match, an insanely close match. For the first time ever, we had all the matches at the same time on one broadcast. Well, except one, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Everyone was going at the same time. They're flipping between screens. Um, just really exciting way to cap off the whole series. And then it came down 2 matches for Brushy Tuna, 2 matches for Coney Island Clown Club, and then came down to Izot and Ridiculous Hat in the last match. And Izot got the slight upper hand in that one. So the Coney Island Clown Club came out on top, but really, really fun finals and super close. Pro Series was really fun last season.
Now, again, in the interest of keeping it short, Neji, what is a team this season that you would keep your eye out for?
I think I'm gonna have to say Brushy Tuna, who made the finals last season and has since added somebody who won a Masters tour this last year onto their roster. So if you can make it to the finals and then add someone like Pocket Train to your team, I think you're in a pretty good spot to make it back to the finals again and maybe even win this time.
Surely this time.
Surely. We're not coping.
Surely with McBanterface and Pocket Train, we can get a win this
Surely
time.
you will beat the clowns this time.
I don't know. Brushy Tuna still has run Mexico and Lotus Knight, so we'll see.
True. And now for the series you were all waiting for, Chicken, tell us what happened in EU.
Yeah, EU Pro was won by the Pennant Cooks, the team only I picked to win. Don't forget it. That was the only prediction I got right. They very narrowly beat out F2L in the finals, from what I remember. I believe the top 4 was all very, very close in matches. Yeah, it really could have gone anyway in Pro EU. So it's a very exciting season. It's unfortunate we haven't aren't able to cover it as much as we do the other series, but just like kind of ends up like the show ends up being really long a lot of the time when we try to cover every single show. So it is nice to catch up on EU Pro, and hopefully there's some way it gets covered in the future. Not really sure how that would be. If you want to run a show, feel free to let us know. Because yeah, it is. I mean, there's some very, very high quality play in EU Pro. Perhaps some of the teams are arguably some of the strongest just teams in THL. So it it would be really cool to cover um, more of EU Pro. Just yeah, logistically, it is difficult to do so. But yeah, congrats to the Pan and Cooks. And as for a team to look out for in EU Pro Series, um, there's some returning teams. There's some new teams in EU Pro. But I would say the APM team, a Prince No Ma, is a team to look out for. I think the most prominent name there is Bada Jimpom, who made top
He's
4 in a
runner-up, I
Masters
believe.
tour or a final or something like that.
I think he's runner-up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, he did quite well in one of the Masters tours in the past year. So I'd say like he's certainly the kind of star player on that team. But another familiar face in Magnificent also on the team as well. Um, and then I think 3 players that I think are perhaps new to EU Pro. It's Dreadhead, Van Spruta, Van Sprutarn, and JT Brinkers, who I believe are new. So I think that is certainly a team to watch out for and has a lot of potential.
Fair. Okay. I'll bring us to our main screen where we have our checkout question of the night. And our final question of the night is a lot of people are not liking the current meta. They're asking for change. Seems like Denathrius wasn't enough. We're in an OTK meta. So I want to ask each of you if you could change one card. Now let's stick to one card because we have 4 people. I'll let the final one of you, since it's harder, choose 2 if they would like. But let's start with you, Neji. If you could change one card, what would it be?
One card, you say? Probably Radiant Elemental. I think Boon Priest has had its time. I'm super sick of playing against the deck. It's really toxic. You can't do anything against it. And honestly, I hope they just make Radiant say your spells can't cost less than 1 and delete the deck, because I don't think anybody would be sad to see the deck go, except people who play it, which honestly is not that many people. So yeah, let's get rid of that one. I'd be happy to see Boon Priest not exist.
Fair. Ron, what is a card you would change and how?
I kind of on the same train of thought as Neji, and I was considering even saying Radiant Elemental before he said it, but it is a card that will rotate pretty soon, and I would like Boon Priest to be murdered even beyond that. So let's say Boon itself is a card that I would like to see changed. Ideally, I'd like to see that change to where transform effects would completely demolish it. Um, something as simple as just making the um, buffed minion itself be like a 1 mana thing instead of like a 10 mana thing, so that you could devolve and just make it completely meaningless. Um, I'd also like to see just a stat hit or a mana increase to it too. Just murder the whole thing. I hate Boon Priest, and I'd like it to be gone forever. Please, please, and thank you.
Fair. Chicken, how would you fix the current meta?
Yeah, unfortunately, it feels like there are a a bit of an uncomfortably high number of cards that I want to at least adjust, but oh god, I'm trying to literally just think of a rogue card, and I
You can say
literally
2
can't
if you
decide on
really.
one.
If you can't decide, you
Um,
can say 2. I'll let you do 2.
Okay, okay.
Which one though?
You're taking away all my
Uh,
options.
let's
Come
just,
on.
let's just go with an easy one. Let's go with Sinstone Graveyard. I mean, let's just okay. Also, let's just say that Sinstone Graveyard and Necrolord Draka are the same card because they are. Just with like different payoffs. But yeah, it feels like Miracle Rogue is a completely like boom or bust deck right now, where there's certain hands that just like instantly win the game on turn 3, and then you can also just completely brick your draw a lot of the time. Uh, I'd much rather. It feels bad to just nerf like a card like Sinstone Graveyard and Necrolord Draka, because I feel like they are overtuned, but they're also I think they also feel like broken because of like the high roll scenarios, and like on the average, sometimes like I think on the average they're not like the most insane cards ever made, but yeah, when you do get the high rolls, they're really insane. So it feels like the draw inconsistency is like the real culprit, but I think in the short term I think those two cards should be adjusted. And yeah, maybe just like for like Draka, maybe just make it 1 mana more or something like that. Or and then for the location, maybe like make the minions not have stealth or something so that they're a little bit interactable.
Fair, fair. I would have just ended the location, make it 5 mana, and we're fine. Just yeah.
Brutalize it.
Pretty much. But Dante, I'm sure there's still a lot of cards you can name here.
Well, what's funny is I was originally going to say Radiant, and then I was like, oh, I guess I'll just go with Boone. Okay. Then I was like, I'll find something in Rogue, and then so Chicken was digging through. I'm like, guys, geez, okay. I'm gonna go with the Infectious Ghoul. That's the new reason to hate Death Rattle Rogue, like one of the many reasons. I guess the way I would change it, I know it's very early. It's so early. It's hard to like want to nerf a card, but like I would say maybe the Infectious Ghoul it summons doesn't have the Death Rattle, so that way the chain has to stop at some point. Because even with all the other options you have, like the Snowfall Graveyard, which duplicates the Death Rattles, and other ways to make the Death Rattles proc, there's got to be some sort of way to not feel like you just never can clear the board without a silence effect. So I would say, or like a mass board clear, like all in one go. But I would say that would probably be what I would want at the moment. But who knows if it's going to be, how oppressive it'll be in a couple weeks.
That's fair. Gonna have to
Hey,
see
well-
what builds and- Oh, go ahead, Ron.
While we're on the concept of nerfing like neutral cards, I even saw someone suggest nerfing the Mailbox Dancer to 3 mana instead of 2, and I kind of love that as an idea to hit Miracle Rogue, because like nobody cares about the mana of Mailbox Dancer except for Rogue. Specifically, it's so insane getting to Shadow Step and play it again. Or we could just nerf Shadow Step finally. Like that card's been a problem literally forever. Bran maybe needs to be got. We keep going. Guff. There's lots of cards. There's so many cards that feel like highly problematic. But in the interest of sticking to the assignment, those are our 4, I guess.
Hey, Shadow Step is fine. It's not like at one point it made 10-10 Edwins on turn 1 or 2. No. That's just imagination.
Devs are rogue mains.
Now, with that said, that is it for our show tonight. I want to give a super special thanks to Super Chicken, Neji Boston, Donde, and Ron Mexico for being here with me. Any final words anyone wants to say? One more time, super thank you for being here.
Yeah, just glad Hearthcenter's back. I'm excited to have some matches to cover. Been a little bit. And yeah, good luck to all the teams this season.
Same here, and thank you,
Yep.
Lotus, for hosting as usual.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to be back. Always fun to jump back into Hearthcenter, and I'm glad it's in good hands with the new crew that we've got.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Donde notwithstanding.
Oof.
Excited, excited for the new season, and excited to see you guys tuning in next Tuesday when we are reviewing Week 1 of THL action for Season 23. Should be a blast.
Can't wait to make Ron turn on shield mode next time he streams.
Awesome. Well, I'll wish you all a good night, a good first week of THL, and we will see you to recap what happened next week. Later, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Peace.